So, we got ducks. We got the band. We are ready for take 2 of the audiobook. We're gonna have to turn off the sound because that got me copyright struck last time. So ooh, you can see my mouse. Okay, so we're gonna take that over here. It's just gonna bug me for the entire time, isn't it? Oop. The Kraken wakes. We've got an hour to get through this. In the aftermath of the First Tyrannic War, there was little the Imperium could do to strike back at its foe. Behemoths had arrived from a virtually unexplored quarter and had all but disappeared after the Battle of McCrag. The technomaker Mars spent many years classifying the Tyranid artifacts and bodies left on McCrag, but could divine little about their origins from the evidence. The obvious fact was that the Tyranids themselves formed an incredibly diverse race, and that they used advanced biotechnology. The only discovery of great note was that the Tyranids had employed gene stealers as shock troops. These alien creatures had previously been thought to be autochthonious denizens of the moons of Yingo that had spread through space on board cargo barges. Their presence amongst the Tyranid hordes was testament that this theory was in error. Genetic samples confirmed that even the tentacle-mauled Yimgal gene stealers were Tyranid creatures. So, why were they already established prior to the Galactic Northwest? The Salamanders chapters of Space Marines conducted a xenocidal campaign to purge the moons of Yimgal, and Inquisitors intensified the scrutiny for gene stealer infestations. But nothing more could be done. 2.5 centuries passed with neither sight nor sound of further Tyranid incursions. Nonetheless, when inhabited worlds in the systems of the galactic southeast began to suffer an epidemic of riots, terrorism, sabotage, and in some cases outright rebellion, the Order Hereticus of the Inquisition was quick to investigate. The Imperium's first concern was the rebellion on the industrial world of Ikar 4. Soon after the fighting broke out, Inquisitor Agmar, a young but highly active member of the Order Hereticus, led several small battle forces into the capital city of Lomas. Piece by piece, the picture of what had happened on Ikar 4 became clear. The divinations of the Imperial Terror and Adeptus Astra Telepathica psychos indicated something far worse than mere rebellion. At the heart of the uprising lay a gene stealer infestation of unparalleled size. In utmost secrecy, Inquisitor Agmar sent a report to the Conclave of the Inquisition and awaited the arrival of the Space Marines. 39 days after the outbreak of rebellion, the Ultramarines battle barge Octavius entered Ikar's orbit and prepared to deploy its drop pods. Ikar 4's defenses were still largely ineffective because of the damage inflicted on Lomas's genitorium by the Adeptus Abites during the running street battles of the uprising. And drop casualties were light. Companies of Space Marines seized the main defense armories, and the governor's place with the militia headquarters had been established. Small knots of fanatical rebels held out in towers and bunkers, and packs of gene stealers were rooted out from their subterranean lairs in the catacombs and cathedrals of Lomas. The rotten heart of the rebellion was crushed after a close-fought battle in the bowels of the planet, and soon after that Imperial forces swept through the rebel-strewn streets, crushing all opposition. Ikar 4 was back under the iron heel of the Imperium within 3 weeks. All signs of the gene stealer infestation were thoroughly rooted out by the zealous Inquisitor Agmar, with the assistance of the Ultramarines. However, Ikar 4 still had one mystery left to unravel. The reports of the astropaths who had accompanied the Inquisition told of sensing a faint psychic disturbance like a long, keening call, or a signal radiating from the planet. A signal which had been cut off when the infestation was eradicated. The oldest and most powerful of the astropaths, had told Inquisitor Akma that he too had sensed the call, and that he had felt a distant shift in the warp. It was a sense of something vast and seething. A shadow of a monstrously powerful entity which had turned its attention toward Ikafor. When Akma submitted his report to the conclave of the Inquisition, he was warned of a growing number of reports from survivors fleeing from the outer fringes. The information was garbled and contradictory, but one fact stood out. The Tyranids had returned with a new hive fleet, codenamed Hive Fleet Kraken. Where are the ducks going? Okay. They are going up. See, that's a doorman duck, isn't it? No. Okay, I got an achievement. What's that? We got a little pool up here. Where are you going, duck? Okay. Got Mr. Doorman Duck. Got a mummy duck. We got cake duck. Is that how we ended up in the elevator? Okay. And it's cutscene. Okay. We are sponsored by the country of Stirland today. Okay. Okay, so it's coming in. Okay. We don't have any named duckies at the moment. Tendrils of the Kraken. This new Tyranid invasion had come without warning, and no one could be sure how many planets had fallen to the Tyranid horde already. Kraken appeared to be made up of many sub-fleets, which moved to attack worlds across an entire sector simultaneously. The alarming disruption in the warp brought about by the Hive Fleet's passage had blocked out astropathic communication beyond the besieged systems, and warp travel in the vicinity had become dangerously unpredictable. Whole subsectors of the Imperium had been swallowed up with almost no clues as to what had happened to them. The handful that survived had fled aboard ships and had been flung hundreds of light years off course by the turbulence in the warp. The chilling accounts of the devastation left in the wake of the Hive Fleet formed the bulk of information available to the Imperium on Kraken's violent advance. Tales came of skies turned black over whole continents by clouds of wind-blown poison spores, and hulking monsters that stalked the land, gripping and slashing with murderous claws. Stories of billions of creatures swarming across the face of the world, devouring everything in their path and leaving the planet a wasteland. Whole population centers had been subdued or wiped out in a single night. And those taken alive had envied the dead. In the Mirror system, Imperial Guard regiments and Space Marines of the size of the Emperor's chapter still held out against tyrannids, which had overrun the lush jungles and plantations of Mirror Prime. The Imperial forces had retreated to a huge rock mesa, known locally as the Giant's Coffin, where they fought daily against raging hordes from the dense jungles below. The jungles themselves had become extraordinarily active since the invasion, and only constant defoliation prevented vines and creepers infected with tyrannid spores engulfing the defenders' narrow island of rock overnight. Okay. So, that's not good. Okay. Ah, okay, good. Carol has gone live and pinged everyone a message. That's good. We got duck, got elevated. Okay. A free captain brought rumors of Lamarno, a feral planet that had come completely under the sway of a gene-stealer infestation. When a Tyranid hive fleet arrived, the fierce tribesmen had calmly boarded the bioships to be consumed by their new living gods. He also brought a tale from the giant asteroid monastery of Salem, telling of how the monks had chosen to poison themselves. Their carefully tended ecosystem was necrotizing rotweed, rather than allow the sanctified flesh and bones to be consumed by the advancing tyrannids. Now, Salem was nothing more than a gigantic tomb. Let's look at this. Another dedicated merchant captain helped evacuate millions from the mining worlds of Devlon before it was consumed. The extensive system of sentinel space stations around Devlan delayed the Hive fleet long enough for a fleet of giant freighters to escape into space. A company of the Lamenter's chapter Space Marines held off frenzied attacks by the Tyranids until the last ship was loaded. Left surrounded and cut off, the Lamenters commended their souls to the Emperor and took a heavy toll of the invaders before they were finally overrun. The precious gene seed assimilated into the Tyranid swarm. Yet there seemed to be no refuge even in flight. One giant ore ship fleeing Devlin with its cargo of refugees arrived at its destination, ominously dark and silent. Okay, where is? No communication was forthcoming from the vessel, and it made an automated landing far from habitation. Those investigating the ship found it to be a blood-drenched abattoir when they unsealed it. Men, women, and children had been mercilessly butchered in their hundreds, perhaps thousands. It was impossible to tell. The Inquisition suspected a breach of quarantine protocol that allowed a Tyranid organism to get aboard. but nothing could be found. So what the murderous entity was, and what became of it, remained a mystery. Meanwhile, orbital defenses on Gaia had held the Hive fleet back for a time, but the invaders had overrun Gaia's single moon. Now every orbit brought a rain of mycetic spores on the planet below, each spore bearing its payload of doom and destruction. Explorators reported discovering a world deep in the eastern fringe which had been seeded with attack organisms during a tyranid terror raid decades before. Swarms of the scythe-armed beasts had killed every living thing on the planet, and now battled with each other in their unrelenting bloodlust. Seen on a gigantic scale, Kraken moved as many independent hive fleets, attacking across a front that covered thousands of light years. Worlds were often bypassed, isolated, or attacked unexpectedly, making a cohesive defense almost impossible to mount. The Imperium was forced to concentrate its forces on the most strategically important Forge world and Hive world, while it evacuated or simply abandoned others to their fate, letting the tendrils of the Hive fleet slide through the cordon in numerous places. Agmar's divinations and the events of the rebellion on Ika 4 allowed the Imperium to predict the direction in which the majority of the Tyranid fleet was heading. However, and this resulted in the tremendously bloody Battle of Ika 4 in 993.M41. Due to the forewarnings of those involved in the crushing of the rebellion, the Ultramarines were able to mount a solid defense of the Ika system. Once more, the Chapter Master was present, leading his fleet to a major victory over the Tyranid Armada, whilst crack teams of Tyrannic war veterans who had fought at the Battle of the Crag scoured Ika 4's hives in a series of close-quarter battles that lasted nearly a full year. A terrible toll was paid by the population of that blighted world. The planet left a smoking charnel house of death and destruction. At around the same time, Inquisitor Zeve reported that the Eldar craft world Yaiden had been subjected to a series of massive Tyranid attacks. The once mighty craft world had fought off swarm after swarm of attacking hive ships, but in doing so, its space fleet had been virtually destroyed. Several swarms of Tyranids had reached the craft world itself, and fighting had raged throughout its slender, grace-bone towers and magnificent crystal domes. Now, most of the craft world lay in ruins, a shattered and crumbling remnant of its former glory. 4/5 of the people were left dead or dying, a terrible blow to the dwindling Eldar race. Though the back of Hive Fleet Kraken was broken by the two major defeats it suffered at Ika 4 and Craftworld Yaiden, several hundred inhabited worlds had fallen to the Tyranids. 2 entire Space Marines chapters based on the Eastern Fringe, the Scythes of the Emperor, the Lamenters, had been all but destroyed, with little more than the company of each chapter surviving the Tyranid onslaught. And though 2 tendrils of Kraken's advance had been shattered, and the crisis on the Eastern Fringe had stabilized somewhat, an unknown number of splinter fleets have sloughed through the main Tyranid incursions. The splinter fleets. The scattered remnants of the Tyranid attack on Ika 4 appeared to have fled towards the gigantic core, driving well within the defensive perimeters drawn to combat Hive Fleet Kraken. These splinter fleets have, if anything, become an even greater threat as they raid unsuspecting and ill-defended worlds far from the war zones. Splinter fleets may comprise as few as a dozen hive ships, but a dozen ships are still more than capable of overwhelming an isolated world, just as with Tyran over 2 centuries ago. Running battles with the splinter fleets are draining the defenses against Kraken even further. The fleets themselves are regaining their strength as they feast on the bounty of the worlds they devour. The fight to halt Kraken's advance has not been entirely in vain, for the Imperium has learnt many lessons about how best to fight back against its extragalactic foe. In a number of systems, Space Marines have boarded Tyranid ships while the alien creatures within were still dormant after exiting the warp. These boarding parties enter the pulsing vitals of the immense alien craft, gathering information about the Tyranids and destroying thousands of creatures while they lay frozen in hibernation. The information gathered by these brave Space Marines has proved vital to the Imperium's search for a way to defeat the Tyranid menace. Total war. The Adeptus Terra was sufficiently shaken by the constant flow of reports of invasion for the Ultima Segmentum to convene the High Lords of Terra. The conclusion was rapid and succinct. The vast inroads of the Tyranids into the Imperium must be stopped at all costs. The Tyranid race must be investigated, and, if possible, utterly exterminated. The Imperial Terror has since predicted a time of coming darkness unmatched since the darkest hours of the Horus heresy. The Devourer of Worlds grappled with the human galaxy, and thus far it has shown only the first hint of its true strength. At the command of the High Lords, the huge military juggernaut of the Imperium's armed forces turned its face to the Ultima Segmentum and readied itself for total war. To think of these creatures as beasts is a grave mistake. We have observed their vanguard organisms herd prey like cattle into the paths of the main swarms. We have seen them expend tides of lesser beasts so that their enemies have no ammunition left when their leaders attack, and armored columns channeled into narrow defiles where but one of their assault beasts can tear through an entire tank company. Only yesterday we received a picked capture of several platoons falling back into the keep of Nyek's Bastion, only to be trapped and slaughtered by burrowing organisms that burst from the ground. These creatures have shown evidence of a tactical acumen that speaks of a far worse threat than that posed by a mere beast. Lex Mechanic Ursus, Bellus Corona. Okay, structure and analysis. So, we are going to take this moment to save and switch maps. So we got camo showing up on the deck. Quacking the eyes. We'll see if there's anything special about this map. Turn off the music because we can't have that. Okay. Give it a bit of time so we, aren't seeing it. Okay. Bam. We got communications over the Vox signal at the moment. Okay. Okay, so we're watching Mr. Vampire go down. You. Okay. Woo! We got notifications down. Oh, is this a hockey game? What's going on? Oh, there are pucks down here. What's going on? We got one dot down here. Okay. We got Suhai Fleet Kraken. There's a giant picture on the next page with a whole lot of data that will not go over as well, so just skip through most of that. Of notable results, that the Yimgal Stealer and the Kashkin Devil are grouped together. The entries above that presumably strains of tyranid that have become stranded from their hive fleet and effectively turned feral. An autonomous adaptation to their environment without the intervention of a Norn queen that shows an inbuilt propensity to evolve. I feel that Magus Locard has let his studies stray into the realms of paranoia. Surely not every aberration and monster encountered in the galaxy has links to the Tyranid race. Inquisitor Angmar. File 7988432 species 43798 structure and analysis. Court document 382/XCOM. Date 0736998.M41. Subject species record. Tyranid Tyrant Xenos. Rating Caucus Zeta. Closed dissemination accepting Magos biologists. Cross-reference to Inquisitor Quitman, Inquisitor Sivak, Minatorum Strategic Intelligence Collective 827-II, Magos Biologists, High Command. The Tyranids are a foe as diverse as they are dangerous. Only by cataloging and identifying each Tyranid species can we hope to understand them and therefore defeat them. The knowledge included herein has been bought with the lives of countless millions of the Imperium soldiers. There. Them bony. Okay. Has been bought with millions of the Imperium soldiers, and even now it is not complete. Nonetheless, my studies conclude that at least 73.3% of reported Tyranid sightings can be positively identified with the aid of the diagram shown here. It should be noted that each of the Tyranid species shown here is fully mutable. Imperial authorities once believed that although some species were able to assume a bewildering array of variants, whereas others were genofixed into a particular physiology, this has since been proved to be a falsehood. This has since been proved to be a falsehood. Though some Tyranid organisms change at a slower rate than others, all are able to adapt and evolve according to the resistance they encounter. It is because of this fact that any attempt to categorically list each and every Tyranid form is ultimately doomed to fail. Nevertheless, having common terminology for each strain of Tyranid at least aids the formulation and execution of frontline strategy. Convergent evolution. Recent reports of the splinter fleets of the known hive fleets turning on each other in a full-scale cannibalistic war have been greeted with elation only by the short-sighted. When one considers the end result of any usual conflict involving Tyranids, it becomes apparent that when one hive fleet fights another, no resources are expended. Got 2 ducks in the car. It becomes apparent that when one fleet fights another, no resources are expended whatsoever. Infighting of this kind, usually taking place upon the surface of a planet, is a perfect way to determine which of the two hive fleets has the stronger component parts. Eventually, the weaker of the two forces is driven back, and finally slaughtered. Then, as with all victims of the tyranid, the bodies are rendered down and absorbed by the bioships of the victor. In this manner, none of the biological matter seemingly destroyed in this internecine conflict is wasted at all. Furthermore, any strengths that the losing hive fleet may have assimilated or evolved over the course of its conquest thus far are absorbed at a cellular level, and mingled with those of the victorious hive fleet in a new hybrid generation of warriors more effective than the sum of its parts. Okay, I should probably take a break and let my voice recover from the tech police. We got ducks in the elevator. We got shiny duck. Vampire duck. Where are we going? What did I get? Let's take a look at the achievement. Oh. When this guy starts up. Okay. Ooh, we're going up to the top. Where are we gonna go? We don't know. What the? No! Flash. Okay. So we need more ducks to see that more often. Whee! Shiny ducks going down to the bottom. Oh no. We got the... It's going down to the distance. We lost a duck down to the bottom. We don't have a lot of ducks up here. Not yet. Oh, we got a new one. Ooh, someone from the stream yesterday. It is a hidden stream that people will not see unless they somehow I can edit around and redo the voices because of the audio being muted because of the music in the game. I like vibing to music, but it mutes my entire stream, so I can't really do that, despite how much I want to. Got two ducks down here. Can we score? There's a duck in there. Got an axe. Okay. Got two people in here. You robot, you gotta deal with Mr. Shiny. Okay. Here we go. Bam. You just push the ducks around. Mr. Shiny, is he gonna go in the car? There we go. So we've got three ducks in this car. I'm just gonna go up to the top. Got Lumberjack, got Shiny, and we got Wet Cheese. Woo. There we go. And splash. We will save. Main menu. And turn off the sound. Hopefully the music doesn't come back. There we go. We turned off the music. Okay. We got lots of places to discover. We haven't seen a lot of them. So waiting for more ducks. We'll read one more segment on Tiamat M35. So M35. So that is far before Kraken in M41. Behemoth still in M41. Okay. Tiamat was a name given to a large and double binary system on the eastern fringe in M35 by an explorer hailing from Triplex Phalanx. Oh, we got a doctor. He is secure. He has a cure. Number two. Tiamat was remarkable that it contained no less than 7 large life-sustaining worlds and a host of lesser planetoids. Explorators discovered, to their cost, that every biosphere in the system was a death world of the most voracious kind. Whether the prevailing climate was jungle, ice, or desert, or even airless rocks, a host of dangerous life forms swarmed, multiplied, and warred on each other with an uncanny intelligence which united them against man's intrusion with deadly results. The Xenologists eventually determined that the life all over the system shared common ancestry and had developed various ways to get from world to world to seed new territory. Bam. Oh no. Oh, the stuck in the hot pool. Okay. Ducky. Vampire at the hot pool. We got the doctor and duck. And a plaid duck. What? How did he get up here? Duck was in the lava pool, so how did it get all the way up to the top? What the? You, you're a lock duck. Huh? I missed duck. No. Okay, we'll come back. See if it regens the door. It does. Okay. So now we're trying to figure out where you went to end up back up there. Okay. How did he get up there, Ducky? Is this a geyser? Is it a geyser? It is. Okay. And you missed it, Ducky. Yeah, you're heading back. Get in that geyser. I want to see the door open. Geyser, any day now. The duck's in the middle. Launch the duck. We got 2 ducks. Now the perfect time to geyser. There we go. Just knocked off at the door. Oh, got some plants in there. Got a new duck. The museum. Wait a second, there's a hole in the far wall here. Will I go through the hole? Ducks traveling that way. Okay. There just seems to be an impact. Pinocchio duck was the key. Okay. Realizing their own craft would be contaminated from entering the system by now, the explorers quarantined themselves in Tiamat. They were to survive and report for another 162 hours before succumbing to the lethal denizens of the Khan realm. Tiamat was systematically fusion bombed on several occasions, but life was never extinguished there. It now lies within the area swept over by High Fleet Kraken, and as such, its fate is unknown. Most theories about Tiamat place it as an implant probe, believing that some kind of tyranid seed, possibly molecular-coded DNA, is responsible. By some means, perhaps cosmic debris or solar winds, the tyranid seed was introduced to the system and spread of its own accord to form its own rudimentary hive mind and predatory ecosystem. It is now believed the gene stealer was introduced to the moons of Yimgao from Tiamat, carried inside the hulls of the vessel that had been sent to destroy them. Ooh, okay. Now that is awesome. If Tiamat doesn't always recognize Tyranid with the planet, where does that start? Okay, so the next edition has Naga, Gorgon, Kraken, Dormander, Leviathan, Grell, but no Tiamat. The seventh edition. Or Noctarius. Okay. The Tyrannic War, Aquatic Feeding Grounds. There's nothing on Tiamat here. Gorgon. So 8th edition. Behemoth, McCrag, Kraken, Doom of Eaden, Second Tyrannic War, Leviathan, Darius Ball, Third Boar, Hydra, Dromander, Gorgon, Gorgon. Tiamat. Okay. Tiamat, now in 8th edition, after being missing from two intermediary codexes, has the entire planet. Okay. Turn off. Okay. There we go. Let's just hope the auto content doesn't get that. Okay. Time to end stream. Okay.